Hi, I'm Nick from MYO Drinks, and today I'm going to show you how to make gin with the Still Pro. No matter how you prefer to craft your gin, the first thing you're going to need is a neutral spirit, like this one here. But first, let's talk about the different methods for making gin. To make your gin, you can either add gin flavourings, like these ones here, or use gin botanicals, like these ones. Now, flavouring is a great way to make gin really quick and easy. And all you do is simply add your flavouring to your neutral alcohol, like a vodka, and it's done. The other way is use botanicals, and you can use them by maceration, steeping, or via vapour infusion. So maceration involves placing botanicals into neutral spirit and letting them infuse for a period of time. After that, you distill. So we recommend leaving them to macerate for 3 days, but you can try shorter or longer periods. You can also macerate in your Still Pro boiler, and similar method, placing your neutral spirit into the boiler and leaving the botanicals to macerate and infuse. You can also try crushing your botanicals too with something like a mortar and pestle, and that's going to open up the botanicals, and when you're macerating, it's going to help those flavours to better infuse into your neutral spirit. Now, this is all up to you to try different techniques that work best for you to craft a gin that's uniquely yours. Don't be afraid to experiment. Now let's talk about steeping. You can steep your botanicals in your neutral spirit and let them infuse with their flavours and their aroma. Now usually this spirit is filtered through filter paper and not redistilled. So that's the difference between steeping and maceration. And this method can add cloudiness to your final product though, so be aware of that. Vapour infusion is another way to add the flavour and the aroma of gin botanicals into your neutral spirit. So the alcohol vapours, they travel up through the botanical basket, infusing those botanicals and take on that flavour. So today we're going to show you how to do vapour infusion on the Still Pro. So today we're going to make a gin with neutral spirit and gin botanicals, and we'll be using the Still Pro. Now, the first thing you'll need to do is set up an 8 litre sugar wash and then distill that twice in reflux mode on the Still Pro, and that'll give you a diluted volume of 2.2 litres at 40% ABV. Now, let's talk about botanicals. So today we'll be using the Still Spirits London Dry Botanicals, and we'll be doing a vapour infusion with these. So the first thing we need to do is add our 2.2 litres of neutral spirit into the Still Pro boiler. We then need to add ceramic boil enhancers and 1 capful of distilling conditioner. Now these two components are just going to ensure that we don't get any foaming or surge boiling going on in the boiler. Next we need to add the head, connect the power cord at the back. So now we're going to add our gin botanicals into the Still Pro botanical basket. Once your basket's full, you're just going to place it into the head of the column and return the cap back on. Now we need to run our Still Pro in pot still mode and we're good to go. So now we need to set up our Still Pro in pot still mode. Now to do that, there's a few key things you need to remember to do. The packing material needs to be removed from the column. The pot still tip needs to be attached. And when you start the unit, you need to start it into pot still mode. So single press, and then a long press until it turns purple. And now your unit's set up in pot still mode. Now, once our unit's up and running, we're going to use a parrot head today, and that's going to give us a continuous ABV measurement as we're distilling. And we'll be using cuts jars to capture our heads, our hearts, and our tails. If you're not too sure about taking cuts, check out our other video on making cuts. So now our Air Still Pro has started in pot still mode, and we can tell that it has because the light has changed from pulsating to solid. Our 4-shot vial has filled up with 4 shots, and distillate is starting to drip from the tip. Now I'm using a parrot head today so I can get a live ABV reading of what the distillate is coming off the still. And over here I've got my cuts jars all set up and ready to go. Now the first spirit that we're collecting is called our heads. And that's going to be coming out at about 80% proof, moving down to 70 into 60%. And by about that time you're probably moving into what we call the hearts, and that's the middle of the run. And then towards the end of the run, once you're down to about 30% ABV coming off the still, you're moving into your tails, and we'll be collecting those last in these jars. Now today I'm going to be taking about 50ml increments, and it's always a good idea to remember to label your jars. So your first jar, number 1, 2, so on and so forth. So when we move to blending, we kind of know where in the run these jars are from. So after airing out your jars, it's good to line them up sequentially. So on this side, these two are my heads. In the centre I've got my hearts cuts, and I've got my tails cuts over here. Now I've gone through and I've smelled each of these jars, and I've given each of them a bit of a taste. Now if the higher alcohols are a bit too strong for yourself to taste, you can dilute them down to 40% and then go through and do your tasting and your smelling. And because I've decided that these 4 of my hearts jars and a little bit of my tails, I kind of like the flavour and the aromas coming from this, I'm going to go ahead and blend all these hearts together. I'm just going to take half the amount of this tails portion. So I do quite like these woody aromas that are coming from it, but I don't think I want the whole lot. So that's actually my finished product. Now you're going to want to go through and check the ABV of what you got here, and then dilute it down to your final desired ABV for your gin. Now we recommend typically 39 to 42%, but it's really up to you to dilute to your taste and preference. And that's another great batch from scratch.